Hello, welcome to my podcast, Not Again Yamilli, a podcast where we have open and candid mentor-like conversations with my friends, guests, and mentors who are not only killing it in their respective careers, but also are leading people authentically, which means recognizing their countless learning moments, the doubts that creep in, and the values that drive decision making. Well, I'm your host, Yamilli. I'm an MBA graduate with admits from Rice, INSEAD, and ISB. I've had the experience of previously working in tech and venture capital. I also own a global nonprofit foundation called City, and I'm also a former fashion model. Now you see, I've had my fair share of finding myself. In today's episode, I'm talking to Sylvain Riba, the managing director at totalenergies. Now, Sylvain has been leading negotiations on winning bids of worth $1.5 billion dollars on multi-energy focused initiatives with the who's who of the industries such as of the energy sector, such as the Chevron and Chesapeake Energy and more. Now, what Sylvain does and his work brings about electricity and power to more than 1 million homes in states and countries from North Carolina to West Africa. But in today's episode, and with me, Sylvain talks about and unfolds his early career learning moments. What does it move like? What does accessing long-term goals look like, especially when you're 29, like me? And what does building reputation and credibility is? Now, please welcome my friend and my mentor, Sylvain Riba. Okay, cool. Hi, Celine. How are you?
Hello, Yamilli. Very good, and you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Sure, happy to.
And of course, my friend Gus is here.
I guess.
He's always behind the camera, but you're most welcome to interact with him. So I have a very unexpected question, but before we go into our conversation, so you have a very unique story, which we will get to. But what was your very first job, and what lesson did it teach you, or something that you carry forward from your first lesson?
Very good. Well,
from your first job. I'm sorry.
Thank you for having me, Emily. I'm excited to be here. It's a good place to be at Rice University, and hopefully help you and others, make the right decisions in their career, using what I've done and not done as perhaps a guide.
Yeah.
My first job, to answer your question, I was a well site geologist based in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. That was more than 20 years ago. The job there was to be on site while drilling, looking for oil and gas, and managing the directional drilling of the well, making sure we were drilling in the right place, and also making sure the measurements, because you measure the rock quality, were done correctly. So I was spending half of my time on site and the other half at home with my wife. It was an interesting, I would say, third job, because what it taught me was, to be hands-on and to work with safety. We work in an industry which can be dangerous, and thanks to all the processes in place, we made it a safe place to work. And it's one of the job I enjoyed the most, actually, when I look back. This was the first one, but that was a cool one.
Yeah. What's something that you carry forward from that first job?
I would say the ability to be responsible and independent. When you work offshore, you don't have a lot of resources. Sometimes you're on your own. I mean, you have connections, you have internet, etc. But you do have to make real-time decisions. Shall I turn up, down? What shall I do in the moment? And you use your skill set and ability to decide on the spot. That's something I'm using, even until today.
Oh, okay. That's very cool. You have a very cool first job.
Mm-hmm.
I had my first job as, I think when I was 10 or maybe 12. We used to make a lot of art and paints with my friends. And we thought, okay, let's sell this because people seem to really like it. So why not we put it up, in the evening time in the park when people would come up. And we put it up there, and our job was to talk to people and sell our art, which we sold up until, but in India, it's looked down upon when you're kids and you're trying to sell stuff as if you're poor and your parents are not able to feed you enough. So when our parents found out, they're like, what are you guys trying to do? Like, you don't have to be doing this. We can afford you people enough. You don't have to earn at this age. Just go have fun. So, that was my
That's
first
interesting. Yes, so you've done something different from the rest of the crowd at an early age. Good.
Yes, Gus here has done art. So he sells art for a living, though.
Wow,
Yes.
I'm impressed.
I was a designer for a while, freelance, but
Wonderful.
it's cool. But enough about me.
No, it's great. I come from a scientific background,
Yeah.
So it's a little bit less creative than what you're talking about.
We've been talking about all these mistakes, even in our conversations off camera and stuff. What mistakes have we done? What defines us? What doesn't define us? So, what's a funny mistake that you've done before, or an unexpected one, that made like a significant change in your life or your career or any part of it?
Yes.
And has taught you something very valuable, and now you're more recognizing it in the making when it's happening.
Yeah. So I'm not sure that's a funny mistake, but I can tell you I've learned my lesson. I had a new boss who came in my organization that was, perhaps a decade ago. So I prepped, I never met with him. So I prepped for the first meeting. The first impression is important. That's true. So I prepped and I looked at his resume and what he's been through and where he was coming from, etc. And at the first meeting, I used the wrong first name. I called him.
What did you say?
I used another first name. Said, I am apologizing. He did not take it lightly. That was not an interesting relationship. And I would say, it was a hard battle to win the trust again. And I don't think I ever won it. So, lessons learned. Make sure when you prep everything, including the first name of the person you talk to.
That's a funny one.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten some names wrong.
Yeah. No, he did not take it lightly.
There are always tricks to remember names. I see in office. So now we know names.
So now I'm working hard to know names. Yes.
Did you look up on it before? Did you just look up on mine? Wait. Let me check.
Yeah. Who are you?
But okay, so you've been in the US for some time now.
Yeah, 9 years.
9 years. I've traveled across continents.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite?
Not really. In fact, your life is at a specific period of time, has specific needs, and is adapted to a specific location. So it's really that specific, I would say, blend that makes it work or not. When we were in Abu Dhabi, we had a wonderful time because we did not have any kids. We were fairly young, but we were working a lot, my wife as well. That was very, very, I would say, in sync with us. Same with Libya, for example, where our kids were young. It was an amazing place where we were living by the Mediterranean Sea. We could do wonderful things on weekends. And now the US are obviously, my kids are older, as mentioned. It's a great place to raise, adults. Right. So it really depends on who you are, where you are in your life. There is no specific, this country is amazing for you. No, it depends.
Okay.
But I had a good time everywhere. I named a few, but they were all good to us. So.
Where is home for you?
I don't have a home now. I'm originally from France, as you can tell with my accent. That cannot change. I would say home is where you live now. So the US would be home today. Okay. But we moved so much that we don't have a physical house that, I would say my roots would be in France, but my home would now be the US. But who knows, maybe down the road I will work elsewhere and be home will be different then.
Is it like the saying goes, home is where the heart is?
Yes, very true. It's also, in your life and career, you may decide that mobility is part of the equation or not. You may have at some point a decision which is somehow building very strong roots in a specific location. What I've been through is very unique. You have only a few jobs that would allow people to travel as we did. The energy industry is one. I would say the military is also another one. And then, maybe other specific things would allow you to have that, but it's very uncommon. Most of the people you will deal with and interact with don't have that as a true requirement, which is very prevalent in my line of work. You have to be able to travel and move around and work everywhere.
Does it seem unsettling for you, or does it seem unsettling for your family?
No, I think, I have a high adaptability, which allowed us to thrive, my family as well, I think. So it's a good life for us, I would say. But pretty quickly whether you like it or not. I met with people that, tried a few years and didn't like it. And it's fine, it's something which is very, again, unique. You may like it or not. It's really up to you to decide and adjust. But for us, or for me, it was very, very neat, I would say.
Neat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a nice word.
Mm-hmm.
What has so you manage like a $200 million P&L right
Mm-hmm.
now, right?
Yeah.
And so you manage these people, but these people are extremely high up in their positions. They're
Mm-hmm.
probably senior managers who have also had enough experience. So walking through from where you've started and where you are right now, and you're talking to people from different cultures and different people, and everybody's different. So how do you go about managing very diverse teams now that in the position that you are? And what is essential, like when we talk about being open, what does it mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like in terms of actions, how does that translate into?
Very good. So the trick is to adjust your style to the specific need of the team. There is not a single recipe that works everywhere. So I would say I would take two examples today and where I was in the past. Let's take, as a well-site geologist, for example. Today,
Where was that?
In Abu Dhabi,
Okay.
many years ago. So today I have, as you mentioned, very, very knowledgeable people that know more about their task than I do. And it's impossible to know everything. And, when the higher you go, the more people with more experience work with you. I haven't met anyone that can be at the same time a chief financial officer, know all about law, be able to be a technical expert. That doesn't work. So today I have to be able to empower people and give them trust, which is the first step. The foundation is trust. So building a team with a lot of autonomy, making sure you build accountability, but also ensuring that you define where to go, you define the end goal, but you do not work, breathing down their neck, checking every single tiny thing they have to do. If you do that, people tend to be disengaged. They are waiting for you to do it, and then the team doesn't work. In those type of situation, you could almost say that it's not me, it's a former boss told me that you are successful the day you're not needed. Like, the day you have set up something which is working almost autonomously,
Right.
and you're here to make the key decisions, make sure you set the guidelines, you control. But at the end of the day, the machine has to work almost without you. I don't exaggerate. The day you're not here, it should stop. But you see where I'm going. So it's again, with very talented individuals that know exactly what to do and how to go about it. It's about building trust and empowering. In some other situation, it's a little bit more of a command and control action where you are in operations. You, as mentioned, you don't have much time to decide whether when you drill a well, for example, you have to go up or down. This is your call and yours alone. You have to decide and then make sure people implement. So it is more of a command and control approach, which is adjusted to the need of the team, that back to what they have to deliver. So and that is a hard thing to do. This is hard because we all have somehow our style. This is your preferred way to be you. Yamilli is someone who does that. That's your go-to. But in reality, you have to adjust that to the situation you're in. Otherwise, you miss it. If you're very hands off in a situation that require you to decide every single time, well, that's not going to work. Conversely, if you decide everything for everybody around you, they will tend to, stay away and be like, you know what, if you want to do it, why don't you do it? And thank you, and call me when you need me.
Has there been situations or like a story where you've been able to define this is a time where I have to be, more adaptable, or let go, be easy, and, let's see how it works? And this is a time where, okay, I need to bring in or is it like a gut feeling? Like,
no,
it?
so one example, we were bidding for an exploration block in a country. And we had a deadline, which was noon on a specific day.
Okay.
And we did not have the approval. We didn't know whether we wanted to bid or not as a corporation.
Okay.
So what I did was I sent one of my colleagues and said, look, you have to go there. You take everything with you, assuming we would bid. But we stay on the call until the last minute because I do not know whether we're going to bid or not. And my job was so the guy flew all the way across the country with, it's a big package. When you bid, it's, you have to explain what you will do, how, you provide hundreds of pages of information and a price, etc. So my colleague was there with the phone on in front of the assistant, asking him, hey, are you in or out? And no, I don't know, checking with me every 10, 15 minutes until my company said, finally go do it. So in that situation, that was a funny situation, quite awkward, but that was a command and control situation. Like, I'm sending you to do something. I am going to tell you exactly what you have to do. Yeah. I don't want you to decide on behalf of anybody else. If I tell you, no, do not do it, just say goodbye, thank you, and you leave. So that was a specific, funny, and we still talk about it. That was, when was that? 2014. Every time we talk, we still talk about that.
So all this time you're in another place on the phone, and it's not yet time to bid, but you're just getting there. Is it?
No, you have. So it's like when you have two deadlines that are incompatible. You have the deadline of the bid process. Okay. You're not the only one to bid. That's nothing that you do not control. The country tells you have to bid at noon. And then you have the process of your own company, which may miss the deadline. Right. And that was exactly the case. You're in between two conflicting agendas, and your job is to make it work. But in that instance, trust was very important. I picked one person that I knew would do the job perfectly and would either say it or do it or not, without questions. You're not there to why are we not bidding? Yeah. This is not the question. You do it or you don't do it. That's it.
So that's that. So do you get to pick people, or do you know your people well enough that time and again helped you?
It depends. I would say I'm very people oriented. One of my strengths is to understand your strength, actually, and build a team around that. In some situation, like a big organization, my company, TotalEnergies, we are 100,000 people. There is a mobility process. I do not decide who my team members will be. Sometimes the company does it, and it's very frequent in a large organization. You don't get to pick your team, and it's fine. You have to make it work. In some other situation, like in the team I'm currently running, I had the chance to hire people. That was a new team that we could build from scratch. So in those situations, yes, or instances, I had a say in who would be part of it and who would not. You have to make it work. At some point you're in charge of delivering a project, delivering success, and your teammates are who they are. You just have to make sure you succeed.
It just reminds me of a story because I have my own foundation, and so in the very beginning, you choose your team and that's when I look back at it, and even through multiple MBA courses that you go through, that essential founding team is so important. And I chose my friends because they were the most closest, and they were all engineers, and I wanted somebody to work on the tech part of it, and I didn't know how. So I said, but I very well knew who was going to be my confidant, like who I was going to go to for any help, and that person could relay all the information to everybody else, and they knew how to take it forward, even if our conversation didn't align, but they knew, okay, in totality, what's the project, how we're supposed to deliver this project to the people that we're presenting. So I figured that, yeah.
Yes. You raise a very good point. Shall you be surrounded by friends or people with specific skills? It's a fine balance. If you're lucky, you have the ability to select people that are different from you, that can bring something that's different and complementary without being intimidated by it. You want to be surrounded by people smarter than you are, and it's easy for me, but sometimes it's hard. But also that people that you trust and trust you, and hence the friendship. But it's okay to make sometimes the tough calls and say, you know what, we are very good friends, but on this specific job, this is not not for you, and it's okay. But spending time with your people, the people that work with you is critical. I mean, at the end of the day, a company it's people and processes. That's it. We sometimes made the mistake that a company are assets.
Yeah.
In reality, it's more than that. Assets can be bought, can be sold. People and processes is really what make a company successful or not. So work those two a lot.
Well said. My first manager in my first job back home in India. So we had a first one-on-one. The first day I was there, after my training, I go to meet him. He's like, officially as an employee and not as a prospective potential candidate. And he said, I'm going to give you this advice. And he said, your biggest strength in your career and in the corporate is going to be your network. So he said, maintain and build those relationships from an early on, and you can always fall back on it.
No, it's true. I mean, your people in a position of power are the ones that will give you power and give you opportunities. Hence, it's important to have a network. But the reason they will give you something is thanks to your reputation. At the end of the day, that's who you are, which defines what you will do next. Okay. And it's how people perceive you. It's not how you perceive yourself. It's really what your reputation says about you, what you've achieved, the deliverables, the KPIs, but also who you are and how people perceive you when they talk to you. And at the end of the day, it's that consensus around you that allows you to have opportunities, make the right connections, think through ideas, and the network is the enabler. But the key part is also your reputation. Work on that. It's important.
Okay. How have you built a reputation?
At the end of the day, your reputation helps you when things go wrong. So I'm serious. I deliver projects, and that's what I do. And the reputation is fairly good within the company I work for. But it's especially helpful when things go wrong. We went through a project that did not meet the expectation. And at some point, the system is crystallizing around, hey, what goes wrong? And then you have a lot of questioning around that. And a lot of the decision-making process is being double-checked. And then people are checked. Why did he or she made that call? In those situations, this is when your reputation of being professional, being strong are important. Like, well, actually, if they did that, that's probably because that was the right call at the right time.
Right.
And it allows you to, bounce back and move on to finding solutions instead of having to fight for, no, the decision that was made is that because of this, and that was a given, So that for me is one example, when things are not, because in your career, it's never going to be perfect. I've never met someone that has never made a mistake. If that's the case, it means you haven't done much in your career. You take risks, you reassess, you readjust, you move on, you correct. And the reputation helps you through those difficult times. Of course, the success stories are always what people talk about. In reality, you know yourself when things go wrong. That's when you see who you are.
And when has things gone wrong for you?
When you're unable to, I went through a negotiation for probably a year and a half without being successful at the end. And that paved the way for a lot of changes in the way I was negotiating, for example. And the style was inaccurate. That was a situation where conflict was required, and I was still approaching it with the mindset of 1 + 1 = 3. For example, we're going to grow together. I'm going to listen to, your expectations and make sure they are met and grow out of it. In reality, the expectation was not to grow, was to have a very strong status quo. And it took me a year and some to realize that, a little bit less actually, but that I had to reset my expectation, and that the success was not growing the business, but the success was maintain the business as is. That was the goal of the other party, I would say. And
does this not come like in when you're having these conversations? Is it not like put forward with like, okay, this is the goal of it, this is what we're doing, or this is
in the vast majority of the time, the real reason for a decision or a statement or a negotiation position is not the first one that is expressed. And usually never, actually. You start with something else, and it takes you time to build a relationship, listen to what the other person has to say, to finally realize what the true outcome can be. And it's never, I've never seen a case where on the first meeting, everything is like clarified and we all know exactly where you want to go, where they want to go. And that's a simple discussion. That is never as simple as that. It takes much more than that. And sometimes the holdup is surprising. It's not what you think. The real question, the real driver may be expressed, weeks, months into a discussion.
This is like they should have like corporate therapy. It just seems like people like in the first go, like what you normally see, and like what is in your head, like tell it, be straightforward. It's healthy.
It also depends on your professional life or career, I would say. Back to my point around mobility and being adaptable. I don't know the next party I will have to negotiate with. I discuss with large companies, Eni, Chevron, Chesapeake Energy, Apache. Down the road, or Duke Energy today, down the road, they could be different. You may not know the next person you will deal with, or the next company you will deal with. So you have that learning process. And the beauty of it is you bring fresh ideas, you start, something different. So that allows you to build something different. In other situations in your career, you may be in a very different environment where you will stay with the same counterparts for many years. And that will require you to adjust your style to be something different. Like I will deal with those people for, a decade. I don't know if you work in healthcare, for example, you choose a specific hospital in a specific city, you will stay there for many, many years. And therefore, the way you adjust and talk to people, negotiate, work with your, colleagues will be done differently.
So this is a very people's job, like getting to know people and building that relationship so that, you can, win those contracts. Have you always been a people person? Like when you were a child, how you grew up? How did you come out to be or develop this personality to know people?
Yes. I've always been, outspoken. Okay. I've always enjoyed working with others and being, that came young. But at the end of the day, back to adaptability, I think it's important. We sometimes make the mistake like, people are introverts or extroverts. That is a very simplistic view. You can be an introvert and be an outstanding speaker. You have to work on it, and you may not like it. It may be stressful, but same goes with people person. At the end of the day, it's a muscle. You have to work on it. If you stop, it's just you lose it. So same goes with that. So, but yeah, I've always enjoyed that. I knew it's something that, but I realized I could use it at work probably years into it. At first I was, doing math and science. That was my thing. So I'm going to do this and, model things and, and then, maybe I can do something else,
When was that time where you were like, okay, maybe I can do something else?
Well, maybe I would say 8 years. In my career, I was in my mid-30s.
Were you already like into the kind of work that you are right now, or were you a different position?
I was. Yeah, that was my first career pivot. moving from being an engineer to maybe I want to do something else. And my company was, kind enough to allow me to do that. Again, back to the reputation and people that can help you. So I had a chance to pivot from a pure geoscience world into finance. I was an economist for many years. And that was a true pivot to something entirely different. The deliverables were still very technical, spreadsheets, Excel, etc. Not too much people oriented. But it was the first time I thought, I want to try something else. I want to have a broad, diverse career as opposed to a very specialized one. And both worked. It's just who you are and what you want to do that matters. There is no single path for success. You just define what it is for you. So that was the first shift to something else. And then, people give you more opportunity, more responsibility. And then instead of being an individual contributor, you now are, trusted with others, and you're helping others to achieve goals by, leading teams, etc.
So that was your first pivot. And then this was not a very people's job either.
Correct.
It was your first pivot. And then when did you realize, okay, I need to pivot from this now?
Yep.
This is not
so
it.
then I never stopped. I had 6 different jobs. So it was when I moved to the US. That was the first time I had a team, and then it kept growing and growing responsibility, and along the years.
And when was the point that you got into contract negotiations?
That was in the US. Worked in midstream, in unconventional. The goal there was to find solutions for, you drill a well, you need to market the oil and the natural gas and the NGLs. So you have to find companies that can provide services, wellhead gathering, processing of the natural gas, marketing of the liquids. It requires a lot of investment that are done by others. And you focus on the upstream part, on the drilling, the completion, and the production of oil and gas. So that was the first time I went into, interaction with third parties, running hundreds of millions of dollars of contracts, making sure you define the risk, the deliverables, the terms and conditions, etc. And then I never stopped.
So that came how far into your career as when you started?
That was, I would say, a solid decade into it. Yeah. Well, those industry. So if you take a helicopter view, the energy industry, our job is to understand the risk and quantify the risk. You don't know how much oil and gas or you will find. So the amount of resource you will work on is unknown. And your job is to understand and to quantify the risk around that, because it's a very capital-intensive business. You cannot really invest a few $1 billion and then realize down the road, oops, this is not what I had in mind. You've just lost a lot of money. So the bulk of the activity in this industry is to quantify the risk and have a correct response to it and an appropriate investment. You need a little bit of time and experience to be able to make those decisions. And I still have elders that make them for me. But that's a lengthy process to learn and be able to do it. And you have to go through several jobs to understand how and what to do and how to position the company and the specific requests you make to others. So it's not your first job.
Yeah, I kind of just came to the same realization weeks ago regarding something very similar.
Yeah,
but I understand that. Okay,
it's actually a cool thing. I would advise you to find jobs that are difficult so that you bring value. If it's too easy, it means anyone can do it. So do something else.
When you say bring value, that's a difficult. What brings value to you could be not the same value to the person in front. What brings value to them could not be what's satisfying you. So how do you start? Not even start. Just how do you navigate that?
That is, I don't know. wisdom would say, oh, you need to find a job that you're passionate about, and you align this with what you do. It is, if you're lucky, you have a passion that you know about, like you talked about art, for example, and that if that's your driver and you're like, this is what I want to do, okay, that's, you do that, you work around that. In some other cases, you don't have like a specific thing that drives you. You find, I would say, meta criteria that you enjoy, as we talked about, leading people, working big processes, negotiating, traveling, you name it, and then you find a job that meet those criteria. Otherwise, I mean, it's a difficult quest. I don't have a specific passion. I'm curious, I would say. That could be something that defines me. So, I mean, for me, if you were to tell me you're going to do that thing for the next 20 years, I'm probably not agree with that. But that's me. I mean, someone else may say, oh, I am a surgeon. My job is to save life. And I love that. And I will work on that for decades. And that's amazing.
That's true. My grandfather wanted me to be a surgeon since when I was a child. He took me a picture of me and then he framed it up, and he would tell everybody she's going to be a surgeon one day. She's going to take over this hospital in this place that we grew up. It's run by a family doctor who's no more, but he was a very renowned surgeon. He said, she'll take over for you and you will teach her. But as I grew up, it just didn't like physics. This didn't like it. So I'm like, I can't do this now because I need to learn how to do physics. So pivoted from that,
right.
Essentially.
Well, it's wonderful you had the chance to do it. That's another side of the conversation. But as a parent, you don't want to impose your view on your kids. You want to make sure they take the right decision, and it's scary because you have to let them. You teach them values, you educate, and then it's up to them to make a call. In some cases, parents decide on behalf of their children. That I have rarely see that work in the long term.
There's something that I realized how I grew up with my grandparents for most times. Very innately, what was my grandfather was extremely, he's very disciplined enough. This is the time you have to sit and do this. So, but when I told him I don't want to be a doctor, but I want to take economics and I want to take math. I really liked math because of him, but I don't want to do this. He said, okay. Take it. You got to be the best in it, like anything that you choose to be.
Wonderful.
So he said it's okay, but then when I look back and I'm trying to see how he would have thought about it, is for him it's important that excellence mattered, and he thought excellence was being a surgeon.
Very good.
But he stuck to the same values. It said, okay, you do, but then you still stick to what I taught you, which is be the best. Either this or that.
Yeah, that's a good advice.
So that's something that I just recently thought about. Like, okay, that's how it's a good way to take away or stand rooted in your values.
You're like saving the world. Well, that's a bold statement. Like, that's a strategy. You can apply that to your life. I want to be successful. That doesn't mean anything. What's important is if you want to save the world or be successful, you focus on the next little thing you want to do. What is the next thing I'm going to solve? What is the problem I'm going to solve? What is my next step? And you make those baby steps towards a general direction. So that's how you are successful. If you stay at a very bold statement, a strategic statement, that's not how it works. The reality is, when the rubber meets the road, is how are you going to implement? What are the actions you're going to take to get you there? The baby steps. So that's what you work on. But you can define I always try to do that. You define a bold thing, a goal somewhere, a long-term goal. But then the key part is, what is my next move? What is my next decision? And slowly but surely you get there. Back to your grandfather, you want to be successful. Well, that's one path. Yeah, but there could be another one. Oh, that works too. Let's do that. But the key step is, and yours, you've done it. You're here. We work together. We studied at the same place, which is, to get in. It's an extremely challenging school to be part of, which tells you've done the right steps. You took the right baby steps.
And I continue to do that
Continue.
consistently.
Uh-huh.
While we're talking about roots and values, what do you hold on to as your belief system that you have carried forward from, you come from France, so you carried forward from home, from your family, and you take it in career, you take it with your family, with your kids, and for your own personal self?
Hard work. That's for me. I'm a doer. I enjoy doing things. That's something which always allowed me to be successful. When talking about Rice University, when you go through an executive MBA while working and being good at, you just have to you do the hours and you do them, and that drove me. Family is a very important one. It's one of my key values. You're here for a reason. One of them for me is them. That's very empowering. That dictates some of the decisions, some of the yes or the no I had to make or take. And then I apply other things like I'm a strategist. For example, what's important for me is to analyze the multiple scenario in my head, trying to figure out what could work, what could not work, which is probably why I enjoy negotiation, because that's something I appreciate. And then you narrow it down, and then you figure out, okay, that's one path that's workable, but you thought about the other 20 that could work and that actually are less, you make your decisions basically. I would say those three things are important for me, and I rely on them all the time.
So it's hard work because it's got you to where you are today, from where you've come from. And
family.
It's you're doing everything for at the end of the day.
Or with them, or it's
okay.
important.
So, and the third thing you said is
being strategic.
Yes.
Being able to, but that's kind of who I am. So
okay, that's personally.
Mm-hmm.
So we've covered like family, covered career, and personal. Again, we come back to personal. I think, but the last question, or if you had to, this is a very funny question, but if you had to have a billboard, and you could have a billboard anywhere that you want, no financial constraints, where would that be, and what would that billboard say?
For you?
No, for you. This is so. This is for you. Like this is a personal question on how would you see this? And I'm not asking this in terms of a career-wise thing, but just in a because we were talking about values and belief system and what has changed you or what has brought you onto this. But so what would that billboard say? Like saying like, what would be the name of my autobiography book? Something like that.
Ooh. That's a neat. Yeah, let me think about that.
Yeah, so you don't. These questions are not. I didn't give this to him. This is on the spot.
I would say know where you want to go, but focus on the next step. And it's something that I think the reason I say that is I would have a tendency, as a lot of people, to think about the end goal and the end goal only, whereas in reality the key steps are what do you need to do now and how to implement. And once you shift that mindset to the present more than just the future, that's much easier. For example, I work in the energy. I do renewable energy today. And my industry at large is going through what we call an energy transition, where we reduce the amount of fossil fuel use and transition to something different. The majority of the discussion you have around those topics are long-term goals. We are going to get rid of carbon emission by 2050, where in reality, the key part of the equation is what do we need to do today to make it happen. And a lot of people just focus on what's going to happen in 2050, and that's not how you are successful. The key and the hard step and the hard stuffs are, okay, what do you do right now? What are the policies you implement? What are the decisions you make? We talk a lot about oil and gas use. How do you replace oil and gas? If you ever think that's something you want to do, you should dig into that and analyze it. You realize it's going to take trillions of dollars. It's going to take a very long time to be there. All right, so then what do you do? And that's what you need to work on. And once you realize what the next step is, well, that's empowering because you are now delivering things, you now implement, you know, make it happen, and you get yourself to the path to, you know, the long-term goal. But if you just surround yourself by people that only talk about the long-term goal, then you're not going to go anywhere, which is a concern.
So where would this billboard be which says focus on the next steps?
Where? Somewhere I can see it every day. So
But you're always moving.
yes, so I'll something that I can carry. So I'm thinking about something smaller than a billboard, now that you say that, or a billboard with wheels. But I'll keep it with me, maybe close to my chest, you know, something like that, like a little note like that, like a post-it. Maybe,
Post-it?
yeah, maybe stronger than a post-it. I'll lose post-its.
So this one's for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I'm not, yeah. Yes, no, that one is for me, not
That's
for
okay.
others. Yeah.
Yes. Well, on the ending note, what advice would you have for me?
For you,
Yeah.
find the next step. It's an important one. Yeah. No, you know, it's, and I think the key part is don't overthink it too much. You know, sometimes you have to work to get there. You have to make those connections. You have to build that reputation that we talked about. You have to work to build that first step. And at the end of the day, the knowing what the end goal is, it's easy to then say yes or no. Right. So, you know, build many opportunities and then define, is this one getting me somehow, somewhere closer? Yes, I take it. Don't overanalyze it. Okay. Otherwise, it's just, you know, you run in circles. Conversely, if the first offer or opportunity you have is not going in the right direction, just say no. It's okay. You know, you don't have to take the first thing. That's hard, but that's what you need to do.
It's the Instagram motive where you see a lot of these videos right now, like when you're on social media, it's like follow the timing and the flow of your life and of the universe. Your face.
My kids would tell you I don't have, you know, social media, but apart from, you know, LinkedIn, but yes. But you will figure it out. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to trust somehow, you know, what the steps you took to get you there are somehow a confirmation that you're doing things right somehow. And just trust that and keep at it. But the first step is not the end of the world, you know. You just one step, and then you move on to the next, and the next, and the next.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, and thank you so much for taking out the time today, for being here.
Sure.
And especially anytime I requested, you're always there for help and advice, and I truly appreciate that. And I'm grateful for just to know you and to have met you in the most unexpected ways.
Yeah, thank you, Yamilli. Thank you, Gus. That was a pleasant conversation.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Good.